Hello everyone and welcome. We have something a bit special for all of you. We are going to be taking a deep dive into the newest trailer for the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, officially titled The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. To help us get a closer and more detailed look, I have the original video file for the newest trailer from Nintendo, not a compressed YouTube rip. I then took the original file, ran it through a powerful video enhancer AI to bring the 1080p file to 4K and even 8K. This video is only in 4K, but I do have a video going up after this one, which will have the full 4K and 8K versions, as well as also being converted to 60 frames per second instead of its original 30. These zoom-ins and comparisons are just to help show the difference in the enhanced versions, and hopefully this will allow us to zoom in and have a much better look at details that would otherwise be hidden in the background. If there is anything I leave out of this video, please comment below and let me know. And when I make my next video, I'll be sure to give you a shout out for bringing it to my attention. If you are interested in more Zelda content, you can check out our co-hosts Daniel, Kayla, or The Geek Apprentice, or watch some of my other Zelda videos. Before we begin, I would like to ask you, when do you believe Nintendo will show us another trailer or give more details on Tears of the Kingdom? What do you think the meaning behind that title is, and what question or aspect of this new trailer has you thinking the most? We'll be reading and giving our thoughts on the most interesting comments during the next episode of our Zelda podcast, the Hylian Gamescast, and a few other upcoming videos we have planned. So if you're a fan of videos like this, we please ask that you give this video a like and subscribe, so you don't miss out on more news, details, and your question being answered. This trailer begins with a close-up of a new character carved in the wall. All of the scenes like this seem to be lit up by a torch or flame as we see the red light flickering over the cave drawings, as well as those red flares and ash rising up. Perhaps this is Link and Zelda looking at the walls in the cave we see them in during the first two trailers. There are a few theories going around on who this is, from it being Hylia, a previous ruler of the Zonai, a demon who wishes to bring back Ganondorf, and some suggest they could not even be human, pointing out the drastic differences in its features compared to other characters we will see in the next scene. However, I believe it is possible they could simply be wearing a lot of clothing, armor, accessories, or something more appropriate for a religious or ceremonial purpose. For instance, some believe these to be extremely long ears with jewelry hanging off, while others believe it is all part of a large headpiece. These square spiral shapes are just a stylistic representation of hair. Some point out the eyes look like Majora's Mask, and while I can see the resemblance, it is just another stylistic choice as Zelda and others are given these same features. The scene fades away as we are about to see the rest of their body, which I believe to be very important, I'll get to in a second. Next, we have an army of moblins and bokoblins surrounded by a flood of malice. Fighting against them, we can see a group of soldiers outside of the malice, as well as a smaller number inside the malice. Sadly, these two laying sideways are presumed to be dead. We have two carvings at the very top, but due to most of it being off-screen, I can't tell what they are meant to be. What do you think they are? The third scene is the full version of the first scene. This time, we can see the character standing on some sort of floating platform, which sort of resembles the platforms the monks would be on in the shrines, but possibly the Zonai version instead of the traditional Sheikah version, which we are used to. Earlier, I mentioned the rest of their body would be important. This is because a lot of people, including myself, believe this to be the same character from the original trailer helping Link. Yes, making this the person the green spirit hand belongs to. They have the large hands and long arms with jewelry also covering most of their arm. To the far left, I believe these to be a version of the Zonai Towers. Even with the dragon head on top, it reminds me a lot of the concept Zonai Towers especially. As the screen pans up, we see 7 symbols each inside a circle pattern, which makes me think of the sage medallions from Ocarina of Time, and the tear shape of the symbol in the center has many people thinking these are the tears referenced in Tears of the Kingdom, which is interesting because a lot of people also believe these to again represent 7 different sages, pointing towards a return to traditional temples as each sage is meant to help watch over their own temple. However, if we do have returning temples, I do not think this means we will not have shrine-like mini dungeons, or even more dungeons similar to Divine Beasts, but with a new twist. I think we would get these traditional themed temples that we're used to from older Zelda games, as well as the style of dungeons introduced in Breath of the Wild. This being a sort of mix of the old and new, for players who may be a fan of one style, but not the other. This way, everyone's happy. I don't think it'll be 120 or more shrines like Breath of the Wild, but but I would hope for enough to make the worlds worth exploring. The fourth scene is one I think a lot of people have been getting confused about. I've seen some people state this is Ganondorf, and use the pose from the first trailer as proof. However, I think this is obviously Zelda. Why? Well, first, yes, the design does have some things in common with Ganondorf. Jewelry on the feet, the pose, the jewelry on the arms, the long hair, but those who think this is Ganondorf think this one in the next scene is Zelda. However, both of these are wearing the same outfit, same jewelry, have the same hair, and many other similarities. We can also see the folding patterns with the ovals on the sides of her outfit. She even has the same pattern down her sleeves, which stops at the same spot. So either they are both Zelda or they are both Ganondorf. I lean more towards Zelda, as Ganondorf isn't wearing anything resembling this. Yes, the long hair and the pose, but we have seen Zelda like this before, so it could simply be a reference to her possessed, falling, or something else. I believe this carving of Zelda is located right above the second scene with the Malice and army fighting, as we see the Malice reaching up as if it's trying to reach Zelda as she's falling or frozen. So this would be somewhere above that, where the Malice continued going up. For the fifth scene, we return to this scene we briefly touched on with Zelda and the person in the first scene holding hands, possibly combining power. I believe the other person she's holding hands with is the mystery character from the first scene, due to the sheer size and shape of his hands. He also seems to be much taller than Zelda, and Zelda is usually depicted around the same height as Link. We also see the mystery person wearing the same jewelry, so I just don't see how people think this is Zelda. Yes, it would make sense with Zelda and Link holding hands or something. I know there's a lot of Z-Link people, especially, that want that. I just don't see anything pointing towards this being Link. Above these two, we see another Zonai symbol, or tears, with light shining from them. Another Zonai tower is on their right side, with something written on the wall here, which I have friends working on deciphering this, just as people did with the Sheikah text from the original Breath of the Wild trailers. So I'll have an update video as soon as we have what it says. Scene 6 has Link opening a giant door which has these circle patterns and these two dragons. Interestingly enough, the symbol at the bottom has reminded some people of the Twilight or Sheikah symbol. We have even more text going down the sides of the dragons as well. After the doors open, which I think they are opening this way, and not how we would expect doors in Breath of the Wild to open really quickly. I think this slow opening is a clever way for Nintendo to hide their loading times, possibly as a way to enter and exit between the open world and these temples, which is actually an idea that came from Daniel while we were discussing it on our last episode of the Hylian Gamescast. After the door opens, Link rushes out and we see he is on a sky island with a shrine with a passageway or portal in front of him. It switches quickly to the next scene where Link is running on the grass, making some think this is the area directly outside of the previous temple, but it isn't, as we see a narrow path leading to the archway portal in the last scene. Here, we have a slightly wide open area with grass, a lot of trees, and many more surrounding sky islands and buildings. In this scene, the most notable addition is these green vials, where we would expect the Sheikah Slate to be. I believe this is a new take on the original way we would operate the Sheikah Slate. You see, originally, we would need to recharge or refill the battery or magic that powered the Sheikah Slate, giving it something similar to a new version of the magic meter from previous Zelda games. That is the whole reason for having the blue flame quests, which also power the other Sheikah tech in the ancient tech labs. The blue fires would set on top of underground pools of blue liquid, which would essentially act as magic battery juice for the Sheikah Slate. We even seen some cool drawings that went in depth explaining how Link would refill it, which looked like small glass vials, and is what we have here. So with this acting as a new version of the magic meter, we can use powers or abilities given to us by the green phantom hand. But we are limited by the amount of magic green vials we have. As Link doesn't have the Sheikah Slate, he will be missing simple items or runes like bombs. I think these vials and his own power from the hand will allow him to have a replacement for the way the Sheikah Slate worked. Instead of using technology to magically make a bomb appear, Link could now skip the technology part and create the bomb himself, using the power of the hand. And we already know Link is knowledgeable on using magic abilities from the first game, which were given to him by the champions. Finally, I think the glowing green color is also obvious that it comes from the glowing stones we see around Hyrule and in caves, which the original game tells us has a strong connection to ghosts or spirits, possibly allowing these spirits to use them as a power source, which is why Link is able to use small amounts of these rocks to power up his own spirit hand, and also why we see them almost everywhere while Link and Zelda are traveling to the cave that leads them to Ganondorf, and why the spirit hand is so strong there around all of these rocks, so much so that it can actually hold Ganondorf down, and presumably help stop the malice that did this to Link's arm, possibly allowing the spirits to use them as a power source, which is why Link is able to use small amounts of the rocks to power up his own spirit hand. Maybe I'll make another video going even more in depth on this, if that is something you all would want to see, so let me know in the comments below, as well as what you think these green vials are. As the camera pans around Link, we see dozens and dozens of islands, and possibly the side of the temple from the previous scene we were just in. A special surprise for those observant enough. At first, I thought this was a bird enemy, similar to the Korgorok we see later, but it is actually a new dragon, which looks more white in color compared to the others. Since the dragons seem to return to above the clouds, and the Zonai obviously worship dragons, as well as us knowing plenty of good and evil dragons have existed throughout almost every Zelda game, it actually makes sense that we would see more dragons flying around in this game, especially in the Sky Islands. I expect the Zonai to have at least 3 of their own. We already see 2 on the new logo, and I'm willing to bet they aren't the only ones we will come across. We see a tall temple directly in front of Link, and several other islands that may be hiding their own secrets. Here we see Nintendo implemented the different patterns we covered a while back, literally doing the exact poses as he falls below the clouds. The attention to detail is great, as we can even see the water vapor and thick clouds coming off of Link as he goes through them. Next, we have something that I may also make a video talking about in more depth, as I have a theory on something really interesting about this exact scene and one coming up later. We see Link jump from a rock in the water onto this boulder that has seemingly fallen from one of the Sky Islands, and then using his time reverse ability to make it travel back up to the sky, essentially falling in reverse, using it as an elevator of sorts. As he travels up, we see a large bird that looks similar to a Korgorok from Wind Waker or Twilight Princess. I think this is where the other patterns will come in handy, where we see Link aiming his arrow while diving in different poses. But I hope there are also more dangerous enemies or bosses we will fight, like this. We see a lot of other small islands, and some larger ones covered in these thick, dark clouds and lightning storms. It reminds me a lot of Skyward Sword having this exact same thing as a barrier to keep you from entering it too soon. What do you think we will have to do to enter it? Could it be something as simple as wearing the Thunder Helm? Next, we have Link climbing the side of a large island. It appears to be snowing here as well. I believe Link is climbing this tree because the sides are too slick and he wouldn't be able to climb them. Whether it is because it is made up of something similar to the Sheikah shrines, or if we look to his right, we can see spots that look like water's running off. And if you pause it correctly, it does have a shimmering, slick look to it. And of course, we all know how hard it is to climb during the rain, so imagine trying to climb something with a thin sheet of ice or water completely covering it. As there is running water, it's in the clouds, so it already has moisture, and it's cold enough for it to be snowing. Depending on who you ask, this is actually either Ganondorf or a different hero, because his hair is longer than usual, even though his hair has always been this long, even during the first game. But I wanted to mention it because people on Twitter and YouTube comments were still mentioning this theory. Honestly, I just really hate this theory and others that are so easily disproven. Anyways, we see a new weapon, an axe made from bone and rock. Perhaps we can finally craft in this game? Maybe this was made using the skeleton arms we usually find all the time, and combining it with a sharp stone to make a more powerful weapon. I want to make another video going very in-depth on everything here, as there is a lot. I'll have some close-up zoom-ins with the 4K and 8K footage towards the end of the video. But first, my eyes go straight to this massive island. If this doesn't contain a temple, dungeon, or something important, I will be very disappointed. We can see the Malice coming out of the crater below Hyrule Castle, as well as Death Mountain. We can see a lot of areas from almost all of Hyrule. Tell me down below if you see anything that has changed, new additions to the map, or if something is just completely missing. An example, this island here reminds me of the area from the Memory of Zelda with all of the champions, but maybe it's not the exact one. Either way, it seems like it came from this hole we see in the ground, leaving behind this crater, which I hope perhaps some that are deep or large enough will lead to the caves below Hyrule, such as the one Ganondorf is thought to be in. And when the camera pans over again, we can see a lot. We have more Cargaroks in the background, this glowing green design shortly before the castle, and here we have something I'm going to be covering in my next video, along with the scene with the boulder and time reversal. I believe I know something really interesting about this that would make this video go on for too long, so look forward to it. As many people have already pointed out, zooming in and turning these glowing designs reveal them to be similar to the person at the beginning of the trailer. But who do you think this mystery person is? Finally, it ends with the full image from the beginning where Zelda and the mystery character are holding hands under the two tears, though the logo is completely blocking off the mystery guy, who is 100% not designed to look like Link. Thank you all so much for watching the video, and please, if you made it this far, consider subscribing and commenting below. It really does help us out. Hello everyone, I just want to say thank you for watching the video all the way through. Some of you have been asking, and yes, we still have shirts and other merch available at teespring.com. You can find a link in the description below. If you purchase one and send us a picture wearing it, we will give you a shout out and include your picture during one of our upcoming videos. Thank you to our amazing Patreon supporters, starting off with our royal family, Shadow to Us. On our champion tier, Justin Clark, Monica Spath, SoberX. In the Sheikah tier, Andramoy, Joseph, Natsu, Wrecker1, Rusty Caulfield, Tremail. And in the Kokiri tier, Chad Costin, David Guthman, Candy, Disappointment, Gus Calvo, Zane, Lean, Lovable Christie, Mr. Monocled Metroid, and whoever this is only donated to hear Jesse speak my name. Thank you all so much. If any of you would like your name to be featured at the end of any of our videos, or to get a shout out at the beginning of our Zelda podcast, the Hylian Gamescast, and to have any of your topics or questions answered or turned into a full video to be featured here on our channel, along with many other things, please join our Patreon and help support the channel. Thank you all so much. Happy Halloween.